Hello everyone, this is Smruti. Welcome to QA automation classes. In the last session, we have seen how to design the sign-in test cases. We have created the respective page classes, and we have created a test case where we are passing the valid username and password from properties file, and we are reading those values, and we are executing the test cases and verifying the user homepage title, right? That's what we have seen. But in today's session, let's see how to read the data from the Excel. Okay, then we'll see how to implement that data reading from the Excel into our framework. Okay, so for that one, we'll do one thing. Let's see first about the dependencies. Did we added all those dependencies, POI related dependencies? Go to pom.xml and see the POI. Okay, so we need three dependency here, that is POI and POI OOXML, POI OOXML schemas. These three things are required. So we have all of them, so we are good. And we can do one thing, we can create a class now, right? And we can say that as Excel utilities or something, right? We can give the name as Excel utilities. And before that, we also need to create the test data.xls. Okay, so let's first create a Excel test data.xls. So we have a test data folder, right? So we have to place it there. So right click, new, Microsoft Excel. Okay, so test data.xlx, open it. And what is the content of this test data.xlx? So we need two things. One is the username, we need one thing, password, and the sheet name, right? So let's give the proper sheet name, rename to, let's say, user login. Okay, and let's say username, and here let's say password, we column. Okay, so we can start giving the valid and invalid credentials. So let's go to the IntelliJ, go to our properties file. Here we have the valid credentials. So the first one has valid username and valid password. Okay, so this one we're not going to log in or anything, we're just going to read the data and then we'll be implementing it to the framework. And this is the password. Okay, so username and password, so this is a valid combination, valid username and valid password. And let's say again valid username. Okay, and password, we can give some invalid password. Okay, so 123 or something, this is invalid, invalid password. And the third one is, again you can say well, invalid username. Okay, so let's say 123, and let's say have a valid password. Okay, so done. And then invalid username and invalid password. Okay, control and invalid password. So there are four combinations, right? The first combination is valid username and valid password, and the second set is like valid username and invalid password. Third one, invalid username and valid password, then invalid username and invalid password. Here in this session, we are just going to learn how to read the data from the Excel through this Apache POI. Okay, and then in the next session, we will be extending it with the help of data provider in our framework. Cool. So close this one, user login. Okay, fine. So let's copy this one from here. I can cut also. So let's go to IntelliJ, under the test data, just paste it. Test data.xls. Yes, so open this test data.xls and see. Okay, so choose an app on your PC and let's go to start menu. Okay, so here I have my Excel, so select it, open. Okay, so always. Okay, so now What happened? Yes. So now it is opening side. So you see, this is the Excel file. This is the exact Excel file we have created, and it opened. Okay. So now close this one. So we have our test data.xlx is ready. So let's have in the utilities, let's say new class. I'll create a class and I'll name the class as Excel utilities. Okay, because I'm going to read the Excel through this Excel utilities class. Okay, so Excel utilities, enter, right. So what exactly we need to do with this Excel utilities? So the first thing is in the Excel utilities, we have to define a method called read Excel data, right? So correct. So let's see. So public, and we'll say this will be a two-dimensional object array, right? The data provider returns a two-dimensional object array. We're not returning anything now, but let's see. It will be useful when we call this method, right? So read Excel sheet data. The method name is read Excel sheet data. Okay, read Excel sheet data, and then capital D. Read Excel sheet data. And what exactly we're going to do in this read Excel sheet data? We have to pass the string Excel sheet name, right? So say string Excel sheet name. Okay. Good. Okay. So now see, and okay, we have to add the return statement. That is okay. We'll return. So now, what we need to do first? First, we have to get the current file path, right? So where exactly our Excel file is located, right? So we'll say file, and file is from java.io only, and let's specify the Excel file path. Okay. So Excel file path equals to, so I'm going to define the Excel file path, the Excel file path, and we'll say Excel file path equals to, we have to give the actual location, right? So new file, and you say here we have a system.get property, right? So if I do system.get property, okay, and what property I want user.directory, right? So if I say I want user.dir, so this is going to give me the current user directory. Okay, so Excel plus new system.get property user directory, so it will give me the current user directory of this Selenium framework. It will give me up to this C personal workspace IntelliJ Selenium framework demo. So up to this I got, but inside that I also have the folder structure, right? So I have to go source, I have to go test, right, and then resources, right, and in that the resources, source test, and inside the resources we have test data.xls. Okay, so maybe I can move it here also inside the resources, the refactor. Okay, fine. So so I'm going to show, okay, within the resources I'm going to keep the test data.xls. So I have to give this path also, right? So up to this I already got the project path, and then I will say plus. Okay, so plus what I'm going to do, double quote, then give the path slash src slash test slash, we are inside the resources, right? So let's say resources slash, then test data, so test data directory, then test data.xlx, so test data, right? So here if you see test data.xlx, sorry, xlsx, oh, sorry, dot xlsx. Okay, so I can just rename this one, refactor, rename. Okay, refactor, directly double click, it will open in the Excel. That's why it was not opening in the Excel. Okay, fine. So this should be okay now. So Excel sx. Okay, so now this is the complete path. I have given the complete path. Okay, so now it should be okay. So file Excel file path equals to new file system.get property user directory. It is going to list out the current directory of the project, and then plus source and the test. Within test we have the resources, and then within the resources test data folder, within that we have test data.xlsx. So the file. Okay, so now we got the file path, right? And now we have to create the file input stream. Okay, so yeah, let's say file input stream, and we have to pass this Excel file path. Okay, so file input stream will say fis equals to new file input stream, and inside the file input stream pass the Excel file path. Okay, so now pass the Excel file path, and okay, and I have to add exception. Okay, so this is going to throw the file not found exception, just throw it, right, throw this exception. That's okay. And now after that we have to go with the workbook. Okay, now this is the POI related classes we are going to use. So what were those POI related classes? So first one is the workbook. Okay, so if you see this workbook coming from the org apache poi.ss.user model, right? So workbook, so we have to create a first workbook, and workbook, let's give the same object reference workbook equals to, so how to create the, creating the object is workbook factory dot create. Okay, so workbook factory, if you see, this is a class, right? Workbook factory dot create, so, dot create file. So what is the file? FIS. We are going to pass the file input stream file FIS, which is in turn having the location of our test data.xlss, right? So yeah, so this is going to throw the IO exception. Okay, fine. So now we have already added the workbook, so created the workbook instance, and then on top of that, on the workbook, we have to create the sheet, right? So let's say sheet, it equals to, so this sheet comes from the, again you have to import class, right, from the org apache poi ss user model, right? This is the one. So sheet equals to, you will say workbook dot get sheet. So you have to use the workbook object. So workbook dot get sheet, and in the sheet you have to pass the sheet name, right? So how will you get the excel sheet name? So the calling method to this the calling place, right, the place from where this method is gonna get called is going to pass the excel sheet name. So pass that excel sheet name over here. Okay, so now we have workbook and we have the sheet, so we have access to that particular sheet in the test data.xlsx. So if you see here, the sheet name is user login, right? So in this workbook, in this complete excel file, we am going to go to this sheet. So this is a complete workbook, and inside the workbook there can be multiple sheets. So I'm talking about this user login, so that's why I have given the sheet name as the get sheet. Excel sheet name is the, will pass that value, right? And then after that, what I need to do, I have to first find out the total number of the rows present in the excel sheet. If you see the excel, how many rows are present? So first 1 to 5, right? So 5 rows are present, but whatever this first row is, not a data, it is a header row, right? So let's first get the row count. Okay, so get row count. Okay, just giving a comment. So how to get the row count? So you have the sheet, right? So sheet dot get last row num. Okay, so it is going to give you the last row num, so you have to store it equals to int in an integer variable. So int, if there are multiple, so many rows are there, you have to go with the long, right? So but for this only 4, so I'm going with the int, and I'll say the variable name is rows count. Okay, so int rows count equals to sheet, sorry, sheet dot get last row num. Okay, and this is how we got the number of the uh, rows in the sheet. So now we have to identify the number of columns in the sheet, right? So how to identify number of columns? So for that one, we have get total number of columns. Okay, so how to get the total number of the columns? So we already have the sheet, and now we have to let me print this one up before going to the columns. Okay, so let's say s out. Okay, so total number of rows, are, okay, so total number of rows are, I'll say rows count. Okay, so rows count. Similarly, total number of the columns. So how to do the total number of the columns? So first we have to create the row equals to sheet dot get row. So we have the sheet object here, right? Sheet dot get row, sheet dot get row. Okay, and let's import this class row first. Okay, and get row, so we'll go with the 0th. Okay, so 0th means it starts from the index 0. So now see how many columns are there. So in the first row also we have 2 columns, in the 5th row also we have the 2 columns, right? So everywhere we have the same number of the columns, right? Because we have username and password, everywhere we're passing that. So there are 2 columns here, right? So I'm saying go to the first, say here what it says. Okay, sheet dot get row, right? What get the first row? So I'm saying giving the index 0, so go to the first row, right? 0th index. So 0 1 2 3 4, right? So 0th row, go to the 0th row, that is that nothing but the first row in the excel, and then try to get the last cell number. Okay, so how to get the cell number? Here I'll say row dot get last cell number. How we did get last row number for rows, similarly we did get last cell number, right? And this is going to give me the number of the columns. So int, I can say, how did I say rows count? I can say like the column counts. Okay, column count, so equals to row dot get last cell number. So now I can print this yes out. So number of columns in excel file, number of rows, number of columns in excel file are, so plus just give the column count. Okay, should be okay now. So now till now we have we have created the workbook, and then we went to the sheet by passing the sheet name, and then we have counted the rows count and column count we got, right? So after getting the rows count and column count, what we are going to do? What is the next step? Okay, so now let me keep it void. We'll first see up to this. Okay, so how many rows and columns we're getting. On top of that, we'll go and again change this to two-dimensional object array, and I will see. Okay, so let me run this Excel utilities, but I need to have a main method over here, right? So Excel sheet, this is done. So let's say main, sorry, main. Okay, so and Excel utilities, right? Okay, let's say Excel utilities. You sorry, didn't get copied. Okay. Excel utilities, and let's say EU equals to new Excel utilities, and now we'll say EU dot the method read Excel sheet data. So now I should ideally see I have to pass the Excel sheet name also, right? So whenever I'm calling, I need to pass the Excel sheet name. That is nothing but my user login, right? So what is the sheet name? Sheet name is user login. Okay, rename, copy, Control C, come back here and pass that value. Done. So now it should be okay. So okay, so try catch. Cool. Fine. So now I can run and see how many rows and columns are there actually. So that is my intention here. I want to see how many rows it is going to identify and how many columns it is going to find, right? So let's see. See, so total number of rows are 4 and total number of columns in the Excel file is 2. So we're saying total number of rows are 4. So if you see, including header, if you see, we have 5 number of rows, but it is not including this one. So it is 1, 2, 3, 4. It is giving 4 rows and it is giving the 2 columns, right? Makes sense, guys? Okay. So now row count returned, right? So the row count, whatever you see, right? So 0 based, right? So row count is 0 based. Total number of rows are 4, right? Okay, sorry. So why it is doing the row count as 4? So it is saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It is 0 based actually, right? So first one is the header. Anyhow, it is also a row, right? So it is taking care of that one and it is giving all those four rows. It's saying there are 4 rows. So because the indexing starts with a 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is indexed 0 based, but for the columns, right? So if you see for the columns, how many we're getting? We're getting 2 columns, right? So 2 is like 1 and 2. There is no 0 based indexing over here. So it's giving 1 based, right? So 1 and 2, correct? So yeah, that's okay. So let's see, let's update it further. So okay, so now let's update it into a object two-dimensional object array. So why two-dimensional object array also? I'm going to explain this one. So object array, right? And done. Okay, and after this, let's create a object array. So let's say object array, two-dimensional object array of say data. Okay, so we are going to create the two-dimensional object array of data equals to, and okay, so object array and data equals to new object array, new object. So now two-dimensional array, right? Two things we need to pass. What we need to pass first is the rows count. Okay, so rows count and column count. Okay. So I have created a object array, two-dimensional object array with this specification, with the number of the rows count and with the number of the columns count. Okay, so till now it is clear. So now I have to iterate through the these many number of the rows and columns, and we have to get those values, correct? So how to do that? So we need two for loops. Okay, one is for the rows, one is for the columns, right? So let's say first, okay, let's say int I equals to 1. Why 1? Because this is the rows are 0 based, right? So index starts from 0, but 0th one we have our headers, right? Username and password. So we need from the 1. The actual test data is placed from the 1th index, right? So now we'll start the loop from the 1. Okay, so it is 1 and I less than equals to rows count, right? We have to go till I less than equals to row count. Okay, so 1 2 4 we have to go. So 1 2 3 4 iteration we have to do. So that's why less than equals to row count. Okay, so that is a condition, and then I plus plus, and similarly for j, right? So you say for int j equals to, here it is 0 and 1 and 2, right? Two things are there, right? It's not 0 bits. So we can start with j equals to 0, right? And j less than column count. So now the column count is 2. So less than column count means 0 and 1, 2 iteration it will run. So less than, what is column count? Column count, in column count, and I'm saying j plus plus. Okay, so our for loops are done. So now what should be the code? How exactly we're going to read it? Okay, so we have to keep it into the your object array, whatever data you got created, right? So now we are in the first cell, right? I equals to 1 and j equals to 0. That represents which one? I equals to 1, I equals to 1 and j equals to 0. That represents our this cell, right? The highlighted cell, QA automation classes @gmail.com. So this is 1 first row and 0th column, right? So first row and zeroth column, this is the one. So but when we are storing it with object array, two-dimensional object array, it will also have the index, and you know the index starts from the 0, so we have to map it to the zeroth one, right? So now here inside the object array, it should be, if I say I comma j, right, I will be 1, so 1 comma 0 it will be. But what about 0 comma 1? We need to keep it in the 0 comma 1 also, right? So for that one, when we are going to write, we are going to write, so data of, okay, so I minus 1, okay, so I'm going to store it in data of I minus 1 and j, right? Why I minus 1? Because I here starts with 1, okay, but our object array, whatever the array we are creating, right, that array is going to start from the 0th index, right? So that's why when saying data of I minus 1 comma j, okay, equals to, we have to read, right? So equals to so we can do one thing here, object array. So before that we can have a formatter actually, okay. So let's say data formatter, let's create a data formatter first. Data formatter, and you can say formatter, so it will be properly formatted, okay. Formatter equals to you say new data formatter, and okay, just semicolon, and here you will say this formatter, okay. So formatter dot, so what exactly we are doing, so we are going to format the cell value, okay. So each cell value we have to format, so format the cell value, and what is that cell value? That is sheet dot get row, okay. So that get row is nothing but your I value, the ith value of the row, right? And dot get cell value, right? So get cell int, it will be j, right? Because cell we are representing with the help of j. So now if you see data of I minus 1 of j equals to formatter dot format cell value, we're going to format its cell value, and how we're going to get sheet dot get row of I. So get row of I, it is going to go to that particular row. This is the first row and 0. So for the first iteration I equals to 1 and j equals to 0. So now it will go to the first row, 1th row, and 0th column, right? So 1 row and 0th column is nothing but this data, this cell, right? The cell I'm selecting now. So it will go and it will capture that value, right? That is nothing but your data, right? And okay, just put a semicolon, and now now we can do one thing, we can return this data, and we can let's do a print, okay. Yes out, okay. So now I can say let's say row number, okay. So row number, I'll say row number plus, I just want to print the corresponding row number and the column number and the value, right? Row number, I'll say I minus 1, okay, I minus 1, row number I minus 1, and then plus, okay, and column number, right? So let's say column number, okay, column number, and here this column number is j, right? So plus j, okay. So column number is j, and we can say column number j, just print is bang, and sorry, is double quote, okay. So now plus, so plus data of I minus 1 comma j, okay. So I can copy paste this one, so I'm going to just print this one in the console, okay. So let's run and see. Now I need to return the data also, because I have given two-dimensional object array, right? So I need to return it. So done, okay. So sorry, return data only, so, okay. So this data I have to make it as a global, okay. So because this data, right, object data, where exactly is the object data created? Object array data equals to new object array, rows count and column count, data formatter for int ij, right? And yeah, so okay, so what it is saying, our return statement here we need to add, okay. So return data, sorry, I was missing the return statement, sorry. So return data, so now the error is gone, everything looks good. So let's run it and see whether I'm able to see all those data getting read or not, printed in the console or not. So let's run it and see. Okay, started. Okay, so now number of the rows are 4, total number of the columns are 2. Let's update this one. Total number of columns, it's in total number of columns, right? Let's keep proper total number of columns, column count, okay. And object array, two-dimensional object array, okay. So this is, I have already explained you, and okay. So now let's go through the console log now. So if you see row number 0, column number 0 is QA automation classes at gmail.com. So if you see here, right, so row number 0, column number 0 is for the data, right? So I am reading the row number 1, right, and column number 0, but storing it into the row number 0 and column number 0 of data two-dimensional object array, right? So row number 0 and column number 0 is QA automation classes at the gmail.com. That is the valid one, valid case. So this one, and then the password will be QA automation classes, right? If you see, row number 0 and column number 1 is QA automation classes. Okay, so row number, let's give a space over here. Okay, 0 space, column number, okay, let's give a space here. Okay, I think this should be good now. You can rerun it quickly. And right, so total number of rows are 4, total number of columns are 2. So row number 0, column number 0 is QA automation classes, row 0 and column 1 QA automation classes as the password. Okay, similarly row 1 column 0 QA automation classes valid username again, and column row number 1 and column number 1 is invalid password, right? That's what we have, right? If you see, valid username and invalid password 1 2 3, and then third one, so invalid username but valid password. See, invalid username we have 1 2 3 and valid password. So if you see here, invalid username and valid password, and fourth one is invalid username as well as the invalid password, right? Invalid username and invalid password. So this is how through Apache POI you are able to read the data from the Excel, right? So what happens when we have the multiple data? Like we can have the multiple columns also, right? It's not only username, password. Suppose you are passing some member information, first name, middle name, last name. So same thing you can do, right? So you can say username, you can say first name, middle name, and last name. So similarly, it will be also represented in the form of the two-dimensional object array, right? So it was like 4 by 2, right? So that time it will be how many columns? Let's say you have 5 columns over here, so 5 rows over here and 3 columns. So 5 rows and 3 columns. So 5 by 3 it will be, right? Instead of our 4 by 2 rows, 4. Now in our case we have 4 rows, right? So 4 rows and 2 columns, right? Excluding the header one. And in that case, suppose you have the same 4 rows and 3 columns, it will be 4 by 3, right? So instead of that one, it will be 4 by 3. That will be two-dimensional object array. That's how your Excel data is mapped into your two-dimensional object array, and that data is returned. And this is the method. This is the read Excel data sheet data. We are going to put that with the data provider annotation, and we are going to implement that into our framework in the next class. So that's all to this session. If you guys are really enjoying these sessions, I'll request you to subscribe to my channel, and if you need any clarification, just put them in the comments. I'll get back to you. Please share the sessions with your friends and colleagues so that they can also get benefited out of it. So stay tuned to Q Automation classes for more such videos. Thank you everyone. Bye.